I don't know who's doing all the good flat earth videos these days. I probably won't do it justice myself. My minister did a decent job, but he went very biblical on it. And then I see a lot of people go very scientific on it. It kind of go both ways. I like watching the sun for myself. Just look at it. If you learn to draw, you can learn to see. Once you learn to see and perceive, especially if you learn carpentry, I've always, I don't know how many times, different carpenters, when I was an apprentice, we'd finish a house, like siding, and we'd be standing back and look up, and we'd say, shit, the last row's out of level. Put a ladder on, crawl all the way up there and put a level on it, and it's right on level. And it's just an optical illusion because you're standing on the ground, and it's a long ways away, right? So you're not seeing everything that you think you are. It's funny the way that our brain works, like right and left, and how the right side can absorb so much detail, but the left is dominant and always wants to overlook the detail and just see the plane. The left would draw a chair and it would just be lines, one-dimensional. You wouldn't see anything, any part of it. And certainly, even if they put dimension in it a little bit, that side of your brain was to try to put dimension into it a little bit. It's always going to draw the parts that you don't really see. It's very hard to train your brain to actually look. I'm looking at a lawn chair over there, but I don't see both armrests. I know both armrests are there, but if I was to draw it, I obviously wouldn't draw both armrests. I'd only draw one armrest because I only see one armrest, and then I see a table that blocks the other armrest. So, but your right brain is the only side of the brain that can pay attention to those kind of details and to actually absorb the minute changes of what you actually see. I don't see the whole bottom of the chair. I see very little piece of the chair, and I see the outside lines of it, and I actually see the bottom of the seat this way, because it's a beer chair, more than I see the top of the flat, what you would expect to see in a chair. What your left brain would draw would just be the elementary school. You would draw a flat surface that represents the seat. Four legs, that, no matter what, it's going to have four lines. It's got to, even if they don't make any sense to what you look at. When you looked at it later, it would be like, oh, those lines are arbitrary. Why don't they look right? I know a chair has four legs. Why does my picture look like what I see over there? And people get so bogged down thinking that they know so much. We're taught so much, but we're taught in a very specific way to view the world in a very specific manner and to overlook a ton of things. We overlook way more than we see. And art class never taught us this stuff. They never touched it. They always just said, oh, just draw the shapes. You don't draw the... But they didn't explain to you that it's because you don't see the entire object. You only see in little parts of it. So you only have to draw those little shapes. So when you're drawing someone's face, it looks very funny as you're drawing, because you're just drawing little triangles and shade spots and blurred over here and a little bit there, and the dark eyes, and then the maybe a triangle here, and very little amount of detail, and then when you look back at it, it's like, holy shit, I'm doing really good. It blows when you actually are learning to draw and you start to get good at it, and you don't even have to get really that good, but you'll start to stand back and go, holy shit, wow, like that looks really neat, and I don't remember drawing any of that. I didn't draw that face. I drew, and then you can try to differentiate and go back to looking at the little triangles and what you actually drew, and it's hard to not see the whole picture anymore of the actual face, and it'll be right to detail and very much to the angles and stuff that you actually saw when you were looking at it, and that's how you see the actual person in there all of a sudden, especially if you can get the eyes just right. But it's just a matter of switching off that left brain, and that's done by just over detailing. If you can over detail any, whatever your subject matter is. I'm looking at a license plate because my phone's stuck to the back of a van. Just stare at that license plate. Start looking at every little, there's dirt all over it, and see it's white, but very little of it is white. Because of the dirt lines, all these little specks and dots and colors and different little just shades that you draw. You just draw a little shadow here, and then you draw the major lines, because there is major lines, and it says New Brunswick on Canada and all that stuff on it, and letters and numbers. But really, it's all those little tiny details that you have to look at in order to get that brain to shut off, and then you'll lose track of the world. All of a sudden it'll kind of shut down, I'd say slow down, but it doesn't slow down as much as it just it evaporates away. It's just you and your object, your pencil and your pen and your paper, right? And whatever it is that you're looking at, and time becomes irrelevant. It doesn't become relevant again until your muscles get sore, your neck gets cramped, or something like that. And then you'll look up and kind of snap out of it, and then you reset, bring yourself back into that brain again, or try to stay in that brain set as much as possible, depending on who you are and how much you live in your left. We all are trained to, and it's more convenient to. Your right can't speak or write or spell. It likes the job of making the writing pretty. It likes that job. But it doesn't like the job of learning the letters and what they sound like and what they're going to spell or whatever. That's your left brain that wants to learn that kind of stuff. It likes very anal detail and very quick information. It wants quick and to the point, quick to the chaff. Cut through the chaff, that's what it is. It's an amazing thing, brainwashing. It's hard to unbrainwash, even when you know better. Like, you go out and you look at all these evidences, you build them all up, you compile them however you need to. No other person can tell you how to find your flat earth evidence. Everybody's was different. It's so cool when you get talking to other people who came through their journey, and you get to learn where they started as opposed to where you started and stuff like that. And it's arbitrary, really. It just something clicks for everybody, and then everything else clicks more, and then you realize it was denial for it all, right away, and but even then, it takes time, like a lot of time, ridiculous amount of time to totally unbrainwash about it all. I doubt that I even am totally unbrainwashed about it all. Like, it is tedious, easy to fall back into that trap of the um, space, the final frontier, and all that just utter trash bullshit, right? It makes for a really neat story, but heaven makes a really neat fucking, pardon my language, heaven makes a really neat story as well. And all of the mythologies about that kind of stuff are an amazing storyline that you don't have to be blasphemous to make up superheroes, even. Like the 12 sons of Jacob, they were superheroes. They were, like they were straight up doing amazing, cool things. You should read the books. Those are really cool books. The Book of the Jews, or the Apocrypha of the Jews, however you can find it on YouTube. It's just the Book of the Jews, I think. I always look it up several different ways, but it's the Book of the Jews that brings up the best spoken version of it, or whatever, somebody reading it. But it's a bunch of different readers, and some of them are really monotone. Really awesome stories. Would make really, really cool movies. All the whole Apocrypha of the Jews, all the stories would make awesome stories, and you could make new storylines of superheroes from those storylines of superheroes, staying within biblical science, let's say, with not being a blasphemous. Not because everything that we watch is so blasphemous, and it so separates God. It just makes him so small, so far away when you think about space. So that's what it's all about. It makes God so little, so far away, and it makes us feel like, how could he possibly be watching what we're doing? But we're his favorite G.I. Joes, man. He's watching what we're doing. He watches us every day. And, when I was a kid, you'd pick your favorite G.I. Joe of all of your G.I. Joes, and you'd take all the other G.I. Joe's weapons and all the cool things that they had, and their cats and their dogs, anything they had, and it would all be that G.I. Joe's stuff. He'd try to get as much gear onto him, and the very best gear onto him that you could possibly get onto him, because he was your favorite dude, right? Well, our Heavenly Father we're in his image. So, as a child, you're going to really see traits of God in children. That's why you get so insulted when people hurt them. Because you're hurting him the most. You're hurting that part of him. And that's why kids are always so inquisitive about God and about the Bible and about things like that. Because it's written right into our DNA to ask about that stuff. It's part of us to want to know. He gave us the inquisitive desire to want to know a little bit about him and a book, but he didn't, and some rules, right? But he didn't want to give it all away. Just too easy. Because that's not real love. Which shouldn't be hard to explain. If you've ever wanted real love in your life, or been thought that you had real love and then found out otherwise, then you know what it is that God looks for. because it's what we look for, because we're in His image. And my friend Juan says that the Bible is in us, that the story is internal. And he makes a great point. The Bible is written in so many levels. So I'm sure that it's 7. Because God loves 7. But then God also loves 13. So there could be 13 different, I'm not going to say ways to decipher the Bible, because that would be like, people would think that's contradiction. But it's not that. It's different meanings. At least 7 different meanings to every sentence. So 7 lessons to be learned, 7 knowledges, 7 pieces of wisdom, and maybe just one of each. But it would come in 7, and probably 7 times 70 on some of them, because it's God, and that's His favorite thing. To be infinitely knowledgeable, and to give us an infinite amount of knowledge to learn, because a lot of people can learn a ton of things. There's people out there that can learn so much and just recall all this information out of their brain, and just involve themselves in so many books and so much scholarly ways. And God wants to scratch that itch. So there's tons of ways, tons of things that we could learn, and you could spend your whole life in that one book. Just learning the different interpretations, the different wisdoms, the different ways that you can apply those wisdoms to our life, or to your soul, or to your making heaven your body, making how to apply it all internally, externally, and spiritually to another level, another dimension, another universe, like these comic book universe things. It's kind of like that, but not really. Not that kind of another universe. Not where parallel universes and infinite use, because that's not, no. Another universe in a whole nother realm of existence. Your heavenly existence. I don't know if Juan really thinks that there is another heavenly existence. I'm not sure, but I'm sure that there is. Set out on this mission in my life to be out here in the woods, living as freely as I can, but also responsibly, and driven, hardworking, all the things that God wants for us. But staying away from societal pleasure-ish type crap like television, any amusement. That's such a trick word. It's such a brainwash word. Amusement. To muse is to think, and to put the prefix a in front of anything makes it opposite of what it was. So amuse is to not think. Amusement is to have somebody else think for you. It's all spells. Words are so powerful. Words are amazing, strong, wonderful. language. And it might even just be a thought that's so powerful, because it can be in any language. The universal language is something else. It's above language. It's above words, and it's just about the thought and the feeling, and it reads it and it resonates through the earth, and it's your frequency that just spreads. Wonderful. That's what alchemy is all about. Really, the essence of it. And there's the laboratory side of it, of mixing metals and whatever, but the language of the world, that's the real treasure. If you can hear what the world wants you to do, or what it says to you, then you're actually listening to fate. God's plan. It's laid out, spoken throughout the universe. The stars used to sing before the flood. The stars would sing a song at night that we could hear. Before the flood, the world was different, right? Very different. So it didn't rain. When they heard of rain, they laughed and they said, we're never going to rain. It's rain. It rains now. And the world wasn't full of oceans, and I'm sure that we were protected by an extra layer between us and the sun. And because there was more land, because there was no oceans, there would have been more life, more trees, more vegetation. So that means more oxygen. And just that alone changes the whole show. You put more oxygen into the environment, and it changes everything. Hyperbaric chambers are a wonderful technology. That's another thing that nobody seems to talk about. All these conservative talkers that talk so much. They talk for a living. That's all they do is talk. And they say that they're bringing you the newest and latest and the best and all this stuff, but they never talk about that. They talk about fixing the broken, how the capital system could still be saved and still work, and it's not totally monopolized by these few that just own it all now. They might as well be our kings, right? And you guys are just the jesters. Probably didn't help with the flat earth. Told you I wouldn't do it justice. It's so mathematic. It's so wonderful. And it's so visual. Once you see it everywhere. But until you see it, you won't see it anywhere. You'll avoid it. You can actually make up the curve in your mind here and there. And they help you by putting curved glass on things. And so the curve of the glass will show you the bending of the sides, so it looks, that's, you're in airplanes and things like this. Even boats, they'll do that. And then they'll say that no man can get high enough to ever observe the curve of the earth in the very next breath. That's what Neil deGrasse Tyson says. But he's not even as well known a physicist as all us flat earthers think that he is. Because I think that everybody knows him. He's a household name, but then I start talking about him in front of my friends and family, and they're like, who are you talking about? Like, Who's Neil deGrasse Tyson? What's this guy? They know Bill Nye, but they don't know him. Which is funny. And then Bill Nye, he's a clown, straight up. That's all he is, straight up clown. And he had some neat little science things. Of course he did. When we were kids, you know, he showed really cool little science experiments that were real, and he mixed in a lot of lies, a lot of misrepresentations. That's what they call it. They hate the word lie. They love the word misrepresentation, because you're allowed to misrepresent the truth, but you're not allowed to lie. Sick. Really. Our whole system's fucked. And they talk about it being salvageable from the inside. It's retarded. Elect me Prime Minister and we'll salvage the system. Take these politicians and banish them from Canada. Take away their citizenship of them and their whole family after their treason trial. Justin Trudeau. Weasel. But that would never happen, because that would be intelligent. All we'd have to do to keep these guys straight is base their salary off the minimum wage. If you can't survive off 20% more than the minimum wage, or 30% more than the minimum wage, then you're not doing your job properly. Balance the economy. What does it matter with you? That if that's not your job, then what is your job? It's infuriating, really. These fucking politicians. And then we got like the IRS that goes around and investigates common people all the time, randomly, which is good. Don't get me wrong, I think that's excellent policy. But to some extent, I'd rather be a libertarian and limit government in any stance. But either way, the IRS, we could divert every 10 years to and really you'd have to have some pretty straight IRS, but figure it out. But anyway, divert their energies to auditing all politicians, any and all people who worked in the political scene over the 10-year span. It's a full audit. And if they find anything in you and your immediate family that doesn't add up, you'd answer for that. And obviously, you know, oversee accounts or anything like that, trying to find loopholes in the system and stuff like that, that would just be abolished. There would be no loopholes in the system to be played with. All of those loopholes, all the little bills and all that shit that they've amended to the Bill of Rights over the years would be torn away immediately and scrapped, just the way the Canadian people would want, and we could start from scratch and make things get closer back to a republic and try not to make things. Just let things. People think everything needs to be forced, but it doesn't. The will of man is going to progress throughout time. Like, it's what we're going to do. You're not going to stop us from the march of society. It's not dependent upon politicians or whatever, like forcing us to do it, or lobbyists or any of these big industry guys or whatever, even money for that matter. Like, isn't they're going to be the big driver to most people? Left alone to your own devices with some knowledge, most people would just be happy to be left the fuck alone to their own devices on a little piece of land somewhere. Leave me the fuck alone. I don't need you. I'll make my roads, and if I want to improve them, I'll fucking improve them. If I want to, whatever, you know, if that's necessary, that will happen. You know, if I'm selling things and people want to get there, they're going to patch the roads. When I'm working on the road, they're going to come in and be like, oh, fuck, finally, let's get this fixed. You know I would. I do. That's what I do here. I'm trying to make a community garden in another part of this town to feed people and stuff. It's what you do. Just people would just drive for that. Of course it's what they're going to do. It's mankind. It's the march. It's what we do. We don't need to be maintained. We don't need government in order to make roads or to make lights, streets, and power or anything. They don't produce anything. Nothing. We don't need any of them for that. It's funny to think that the people think that they're so necessary. And it's like, no, they're not. Life would go on without them. Just fine. The less of them, the better life's going to be. Because you're going to have more in your staying right home, right in your own little ecosystem. You're going to have more. Because it's not going to be sucked away to these politicians' pockets and the lobbyists and the charities, to Justin Trudeau's wife to get $1 million in expenses. Like, what the fuck? How do you come up with $1 million in expenses for charity and still call it charitable? It's disgusting. But I'm sure she could babble her way through it if necessary, that she could say, you know, how she had to fly here and there, gather all this money and talk to all these people and do all this stuff. Truth be told, she probably got paid to do all them speeches and probably got like gift baskets that were worth